Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and today I'm hanging out with Lauren Oboe Urban from D&D Beyond, the community manager. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Good, good. I guess it's morning there for you still, early afternoon for us here on the East Coast.
We straddle time zones.
Yeah.
That's the world we live in, is we are all time zones at all times.
And also we learned that we were actually used to be neighbors, sort of. just up the turnpike anyway.
I asked the question, what exit are you on the turnpike? So
Yes.
It's been a very long time. I grew up in Buffalo, but my family on my mom's side is from New York City, so I'm very familiar, and I do miss that now that I'm on the West Coast. But every once in a while, my New York comes out.
Yeah. No more good pizza.
Yeah, although I there's some good stuff here on the West Coast that you can't, at least when I was growing up, I couldn't get. Like, I am a huge sushi fan, and so living in Seattle, the sushi is so good.
Yeah, well, so the sushi, but now the sushi here has come up, so it's no longer behind. Like when we were at PAX Unplugged, and we were staying right there. You're basically in Chinatown, so so there was plenty of Asian cuisine to choose from. And, Nerder Doug was like, we went to one place, he's like, this is the best sushi I've ever had. But he's also from Ohio, so I don't know how the sushi is in Ohio.
I lived for 2 years in Florida, and that was the only other sushi that compared. There's something to be said for living on a coast and being able to get it fresh. The same way if you're in Maine, you're getting the crab, and wherever you are. So it's been really nice. I can walk over to the grocery store, just kind of your standard grocery store, and they just have a sushi chef making box sushi that is excellent. So I'm happy with it. I don't miss the pizza because I've got other vices now.
There you go. How long you been in Seattle?
For about 10 years now, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been here a little while. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why we've been trying to and working on putting together this convention is because before PAX Unplugged, there wasn't any real big gaming conventions on the East Coast.
Yeah.
And even I take a little bit of umbrage with PAX Unplugged even because I'm like, they're not really East Coasters. If they put on a good show and it's a great time and all, but they're not really East Coasters. So, we need an actual East Coast big gaming convention. So, once the apocalypse ends, we're going to come twice as strong.
There you go. You just have more time to plan.
Yeah, that is how we're looking at it, and it's kind of cool because someone just reached out to me the other day that were interested. So I saw a video from Davy Chappie talking about the convention, and I went and I can't get tickets. How do I go?
Oh,
so there's just a little bit of that, but there's also people are hearing about it still, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm excited for when it comes back next year because that looked like a lot of fun. I was really excited about a lot of the variety of guests that were going to be there. And there's a lot of gigantic tabletop conventions, your Gen Cons, your PAX Unplugs, those things. And there's a lot of really small local conventions. And that seemed like kind of a nice middle ground, large enough to have a variety of people and stuff to do without being Gen Con where you can't walk from one end to the other in a day.
Yeah, and Gen Con's not it's not RPGs the way it used to be anyway, the way it started out.
Yeah.
Video games have a way, they're insidious. They have a way of infiltrating and taking over things because, there's a lot of money in video games.
Also, Baldur's Gate 3, I mean, come on. I'm a little excited about that. So there's nothing wrong with video games, but
no, there's
show
not.
Up.
Well, you mentioned vices earlier. I only have so much time for so many vices. And video games for me is I can't go there. My family will never see me again. So.
Yeah, that was kind of my other thing that I did a lot of. I haven't played as much recently, mostly because I've gotten out of doing the nightly Halo, but me and my husband actually just picked up Divinity Original Sin, and so we're going to try to start playing through that together, and I'm excited because I haven't had a good crunchy video game RPG to dive into in a while.
So all the video games pretty much get played by my son in this house. So with the pandemic going on, like for us, the biggest change is now like the kids are home all the time.
Yeah.
And by kids, like my son's going to be 20 this year, so I don't know. He's like a man boy now.
But he'll always be your kid, right?
Yeah.
He'll always be, yeah.
Yeah. So the biggest difference is like the kids are here all the time, and for him nothing's really changed because he's a gamer. So he does like college on the computer, and then he's on the computer anyway, hanging out with his friends. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been working from home for 2 years now.
Yeah.
And so is my husband. So for us, in a weird way, the pandemic hasn't changed our day to day. We're super fortunate that way, like that we're in a decent position when that happened. What's changed is all of the coping mechanisms we had used in order to deal with working from home and being in my office all day have changed because I can't just now go out to a coffee shop when I need to get away from this room. I can't just go see some friends of mine when I need to have some time away from the computer. So it's just been an adjustment, but I've been super fortunate because of D&D Beyond and working in D&D that I was able to, that I can continue to do that part of my life without too much changeover. But yeah, it sucks. I mean, I'm not saying anything that people haven't already figured out.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, hot take. Pandemics suck.
Yeah. Who knew?
Yeah. But it's been, it's you know, the times we live in. And so I just now have a whole bunch of masks. And I'm super fortunate that I've got a husband that I love. And we have a 2-bedroom apartment. So there you go.
So did you ever imagine you'd be working in D&D as your day job?
Nope. Nope. This is a relatively new thing for me. This is within the last 2 or 3 years in where D&D has become a job, and I love it. I'm super grateful. I've always wanted to do something in geek. If I couldn't do Oboe, then this is kind of a dream come true for me. So, but if you'd asked me 4 or 5, 6 years ago, I would have given you a very quizzical look and said, no, I'm not a game designer, so no. How would I do that? And well, here I am.
Well, if you think about it, like you've got 2 careers that are both kind of shots in the dark, right? Being a professional musician is fairly rare. There's a lot of people who want to do it, so which means not as many people get to do it. So you're doing that. You're doing that, and you're also working in RPGs, which is another thing that's very difficult to do. If you want to like make a living and stuff. Unfortunately, it's getting better, but most of the game designers and people I know that work in RPGs have to have a day job.
And that's true for a lot of classical musicians, and it was true for me. Like most classical musicians that most people know that are professionals are doing that technically part-time, and we have other jobs. A lot of people teach, either at the grade school or the college level. That's pretty normal. Most, at least in the United States, most of the big professional orchestras that the New York Phil, the Chicago Phil, the Phil that's in a city is the one place that you can be a full-time professional musician. And then there's like a little bit of you can live in LA and do gig work down there and kind of hodgepodge together a living. Most of us were, all right, we're going to play in 10 different orchestras that all only play once or twice a year. And then we're also going to put together all of these one-time gigs. We're going to play 3 million Nutcrackers in December and a lot of Handel's Messiah. And we're going to be incredibly poor in the summer. And we're going to have a day job. So in that way, it's very similar. I think the RPG world is starting to diversify a bit more, and certainly my job is something that is relatively new in RPGs because there aren't a lot of larger companies out there who have a dedicated community manager position. Most of it, are either freelance people or they're small companies and where they're, someone is doing community management and customer service and also helping to do something else. So it's starting to grow.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of RPGs and people making a living, I think of like Monty Cook Games, maybe Green Ronin, and then Paizo, and then you have D&D Beyond now and Wizards of the Coast. That's not a lot of companies, and D&D Beyond is fairly new, compared to everything else. And those other companies, I'm sure, if people are there making a living, they're still very small companies. I mean, even Wizards of the Coast staff was very small when 5e launched. So,
absolutely.
On the D&D side, so that does not leave a lot of room for professional RPG designers to make a living, unfortunately.
No, but what's happened is there's been a diversity in the amount of stuff. So, like, if you kind of just step outside of the core rule books and look at, like, Wormwood or Level Up Dice or Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds or, any of the number of companies that are they making RPGs specifically? No, but are they making the stuff that people want to be able to have on their gaming table or want to help with their experience or are just, the fun things that they can have at the table? And that's helped a lot, that our hobby has grown to the point in where there's enough people who are playing who have the disposable income to be interested in buying a really cool gaming table or spending on a VTT or going on D&D Beyond and buying some of our stuff. So that's helped a lot, is having options outside of I must be a game designer and I must be one of the 4 who are making it in the world.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if this is the right term, but I guess we spawned a cottage industry off of it. Yeah. There's
definitely a lot more opportunities, so that's good. It is always a lot of fun to have someone who is not in the D&D world contact me, an old friend or like a family friend or something, and be like, so what's up with these dice? Or, hey, I just saw a video that you were on, or I'm watching this stream with a bunch of nerdy voice actors who are playing D&D. What's going on with that? So there's more ways to make money as a professional in the D&D world that isn't just I am a designer or an artist. And there are now more designers and artists. So, I mean, the more people we get, the more diversity and variety of people we get, the better.
I also feel like I would be remiss if I did not mention Matt Colville, because they're doing good things and paying people really well, which helps the industry as a whole. So how does being a musician, how has that influenced your D&D games?
In a weird way, it's not that it's influenced my games as much as it's helped with my planning. Because as a classical musician, most of my life is actually spent preparing for the once or twice we're going to get together and rehearse and perform. Most professional musicians, we have like 1 or 2 rehearsals and then we play. It's a very quick turnaround. So a lot of my work when I play in orchestra is literal homework. I'm home practicing my part so you can show up and be ready. So that kind of how I prep helped with running D&D games, because I kind of know how to go about prepping, and the only thing I need to change for D&D is figuring out what I need to prep, because I think it's different for everybody when they DM. Some people are very good at improvising something over another. So once I was able to figure out, all right, what are the things that I can just pull out of nothing on the spot, and what are the things I really need to have prepared, that discipline to preparing for games has helped a lot. Ironically, for a while, it also meant I didn't want to play any bards, though. If I got asked to play any game, it was like, not the bard, because I don't want to be, oh, of course, Lauren, the oboist, is going to play a bard. But I've gotten over that now.
Don't worry, before 5e anyway, no one was asking you to play the bard.
Yeah, I mean, everyone. It was a little bit of a cliche, and I got a lot of sideways glances every once in a while where I'm like, oh, bard looks kind of cool. Well, of course you would. All right, fine, I'll come over here. So yeah, that was. The other weird thing that happens to me is people keep asking about, oh, what kind of music do you play during your games? I'm one of those people who, if music is playing, I'm listening to the music, I get distracted, and so I can't play music during my games.
Yeah, we don't actually use music during our games. Like back like 20 years ago, we used to, and we would just play, but we would play like the Conan soundtrack or Gladiator soundtrack later on when we evolved. Kamo wants to know, and usually it was mostly during battles, combat would break out, and we'd like throw on the soundtrack.
Which is awesome.
Kamo wants to know, what is the D&D equivalent of the oboe?
The shawm.
There you go. Now you know.
Yeah. So the shawm I don't know if so if you look at the instruments that you can get out of the official player's handbook, a shawm is literally in the real world, it is the precursor to the oboe. It's actually the outdoor version of the oboe. If you look at it, a shawm was kind of more like a trumpet. It was loud and obnoxious. But yeah, it was a double reeded instrument. It had a cap over the top of the reed, and you just blew into the thing, and it was kind of like almost a hunting horn. And then here's your music history for the day. French horns and oboes came from hunting horns and shawms, which were outdoor instruments to be loud and obnoxious so that everybody could hear them all over where people were hunting. And then people brought them indoors and made them less obnoxious and turned them into the classical music we know today. So yeah, if you want to be that person and play an oboe, play a shawm, and then be the loudest, most obnoxious bard ever. Nice.
Do you have any desire to play one of those?
I've played a shawm before. It is loud and obnoxious.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's there's something about, as a classical musician, especially as an oboist, a lot of my job is control and precision, and that's not a shawm. At least historically. I mean, the D&D version can be whatever you want. So if you want it to sound lovely and beautiful and be, playing with a lute indoors at a tavern, sure, why not? It's fantasy world. Do whatever you want. But if you're looking at the real world equivalent, it's a duck.
There you go. Dave wants to know, how has the explosion of online gaming affected, and how and what does a community manager need to do? Has your job changed? So there's a bunch of questions in there.
My job is because of the explosion of D&D, really. And community manager is one of those jobs that everybody seems to feel like, oh, I know what this is. And then it's different for every single company. Like, I talk to a lot of community managers in the D&D field, in the gaming field, in a bunch of different fields, and it's really dependent on what your company does and what your community needs. And so a lot of my job specifically is the outreach portion. I do a lot of being out in the community and talking with people and watching streams and being in Discord and being on forums and being out in the community chatting with people. And then on the opposite side, I'm the person who comes back to the company. I'm one of the people. I have a team that comes back and says, hey, these are some of the issues people are having. These are some of the things people like. Here's some of the things we should think about doing. So a lot of my job ends up being the gateway for communication. And then a lot of social media, a lot of using our social media platforms in order to let people know what we're doing and the fun things we're doing and the technical things we're doing and answering questions.
Yeah, sounds like a blessing and a curse to me.
Well, social media is a blessing and a curse, but in the D&D community in general, I'm super lucky that we work in a community that is founded on a game that is all about working together as a team. And so I think it's a lot easier for me to do my job than it is for a lot of other community managers and some other companies who have to deal with a community that is based on like a versus game. D&D players want to play together. D&D players want to have new people to play together. We want to find people and we want to get along, and that bleeds over into a lot of people's social media. So I think in general we like to get along with each other a lot more.
Yeah, it is one of the far better communities because I would always get the commentary from people that really didn't understand, the D&D YouTube community. And plus, when we started doing it, it wasn't nearly as big. Like they're like, oh, the comments. I'm like, actually, the comments aren't too bad. Like for the most part, and over the past 6 years, there's been a lot of comments. Mm-hmm. Most of them have been pretty good. Even some of the more prickly ones usually just come from a different point of view and less of, just like less trolly. I feel like we get less trolls. All of our trolls are in the game, and they really do live under bridges, so it's a little bit better. So BK Dan wants to know, you mentioned not the bard. What do you prefer to play?
I do. So the joke is I play a lot of clerics, and I do really like playing clerics. I'm that person. I was a forever DM, and so for a very long time, when I got the chance to play, I liked filling gaps, which ended up being cleric a lot, which I do really like. I like playing support classes. I like playing healers. But for me, I look at the party comp, and I like being the person who's going to fill in the missing piece. So really whatever is available at the time is I'm happy with. But yeah, I have played bards. I really do like playing bard. I like the facility in bard. I really want to play some of the I like playing bards that are not the I'm going to sing and play a lute bard. I want to get into more like, here's a storyteller bard. I really like the College of Swords bard because I like the idea of, all right, I'm going to tell a story. The joke is interpretive dance, but that's what the College of Swords kind of lends itself to be, except I'm going to kill you while I do it. I think that's super cool. But yeah, I'll play anything. I do end up playing a lot of support classes, and I do really like it.
The College of Swords was a really nice port over from AD&D when they had the complete books, and they had a kit for the blade. I think it was called a Blade Bard, and they just did a really good job of porting that from there. I've played one once, and I definitely would like to revisit that character or revisit that subclass because it is a lot of fun, and also I've played with DMs that are like, oh, if you play a bard, you have to perform at the table. Aww. And I'm like, why? The wizard doesn't have to actually cast spells.
Yeah, the barbarian doesn't actually have to rage.
Yeah.
If anybody else wants to do anything, they can just roll dice and do it and describe it. So yeah, I 100% agree. Like, play a bard and don't feel like you have to be Sam Riegel. Sam Riegel is awesome. You do not have to sing at the table. You do not have to, if you're playing a warlock and you're playing the face of a party because you're the charisma character, you don't necessarily have to be amazing at talking. Like, do your best or just describe what you want to do. That's why we roll dice, so that we can pretend that we're awesome at things that we're not.
Yeah, I recently had a person say to me, like, oh, I don't think I want to talk in a voice. I'm like, you don't have to. You can literally play in third person if you want, and that makes you comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you. Don't feel any pressure to do these things.
Exactly. It's fun to try, and I encourage people to try all of the, let's do the silly voices, let's try to play act stuff out, and I encourage everybody who's at the table to, support that, because that's the hardest thing when you're like, all right, I'm going to do the silly voice, here we go, and then everyone laughs at you. So yeah, give everybody the chance to do the silly and everything, and then find what you're comfortable with, and it's, as long as you're having fun, who cares?
So James wants to know, Lauren has worked with the D&D community for a bit. First as a mod on the Wizards of the Coast Twitch channel, and now working with DDB. In that time, what's the biggest change in the community that you've seen?
The number of shows and podcasts, by far. When I first started doing moderating and working for Wizards, I could watch all of the D&D streams. I could keep up with everything. I could listen to most of the podcasts and watch everything. Or even just before that, it would be, I can't wait for the weekend when I can catch up on Critical Role. I can't wait for, the latest Nerdarchy to go up. It was a treat when something came out. Now no one can. And it's the double-edged sword of, it's amazing that there are so many dedicated channels to D&D streams, and there's dozens and dozens and dozens of podcasts, and you can watch live D&D or listen to D&D being played 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and never keep up, which is, I think it's really good for our hobby. I think it's really good because then you can have a variety to choose from. But it is a weird moment in where it used to be I could keep up with everything and now I can't. So
Yeah, it's not even close. I mean, 3-4 hour streams, and there's only so many hours in a day, right? So
exactly. But now it means instead of being like, all right, if I want to watch D&D, here's the 2 streams, here's the couple of podcasts. Now, because there's a variety of shows out there, you can find the D&D game that appeals to you. If you're the kind of person who wants heavy combat with a lot of minis and kind of the tactical view of things, you can find those games. If you want a game in where we can go an hour and never roll dice, you can find that. Do you want to see something more horror based? Do you want to see something that's epic adventure? Do you want to play in space? Like, now there's the variety out there that is available to everybody. So I think it's a really good thing. It's just daunting every once in a while when I look at the number of shows on Twitch. It's like, oh dear. All right, which one am I going for? There's 12. Which one do I pick?
I am glad I did not really catch the bug for stream games. I think it's great that they're there. I love the fact that people can watch them and see the game played. But even like we were reviewing Critical Role for a while, and what I found was I do not like watching people do combat in Dungeons and Dragons. So we would do the reviews and I would fall asleep during the combat because I enjoyed more of the interaction between everyone than I did them fighting stuff. Yeah. And I also found that I'm terrible at watching people do combat because I'm like, why are they doing that way? That rogue's playing it completely wrong. Yeah, so but and
you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
No, and that's great, right? Because like I think everybody has their preference, and so you can find the show that caters to you. And then if you are watching like Critical Role that has both the really good RP and then the intense combat, maybe during the intense combat you're just listening and you're crocheting or something. Like I used to watch Critical Role while I was making Oboe reads. That was I'm going to sit for 4 hours and I'm going to get this thing done because I can listen in on the combat and keep an ear out. But yeah, I think it's great.
I think one of the favorite streams that I watched was a one shot from a small channel of 0th level characters, and like there were more like hazards that were the obstacles and instead of monsters. And a single kobold was the big bad, like not even like a regular kobold. And that was just a great show. SR2 Joker had run it like years ago, and so I think I would gravitate more towards like quirky stuff like that.
Yeah. That's one of the other things I like about like the one-shot streams or some of the charity streams is you can do really off-the-wall stuff. You can have the quirky, ridiculous game. You can have something deeply role-playing intense, and you can focus in on one thing for 2 or 3 hours and just dive deep into it. So yeah, it's. I say that having just gotten done with a whole bunch of charity streams that all got ridiculous. So, all got a little fun.
Yeah, you're referring to the D&D block party?
That was the most recent. Yeah, that was an amazing weekend. That was and a ton of money raised for charity. The group behind that, Celeste and Lisa and Eugenio and Ted, they put on an amazing show, and the amount of money raised for the Trevor Project was outstanding. And yeah, I survived one of B. Dave's epics. I am still alive after 3 hours of boss monsters and a Serac. So. Woohoo! I count that as a win for everybody.
Yeah, they did a great job over there with raising money for charity. That's awesome. I talked to Eugenio a little bit on one of the streams. We'll see if it happens again next year, if this is just a pandemic thing. But the concept was definitely very cool, for sure.
There's been a lot of charity going on. I think that's actually one of the things I really like about this job is I get to help streamers who want to play D&D for charity. Like, that has become a thing that I love supporting, and that is a concern of, all right, during the pandemic everybody's at home, are we just getting more views, are we just getting more money because of that? But I think there's also been a really there's been a concern also of everybody getting charitied out. Like, how many more charity streams can we get? And a thing like that, the block party, I think is proof that the community will do their best to rise to the challenge. And if you put on, if you're doing something for a good cause and trying your best, like, we all want to help. And watching people have to struggle with a pull from the deck of many things, and you get to help out somewhere like the Trevor Project, I think is just a win-win. And if that just becomes a hallmark of our community of like, all right, we made it through the pandemic by raising money for all of these amazing charities that can use that money for good, then I'm pretty proud. But it's been a lot in the last couple of weeks for sure.
So shifting gears a little bit, are you playing in any non-stream games or running non-stream games?
Yeah. Most of the stuff that I'm playing that's offline is more one-shot based or are meet up every 1 to 2 weeks. So I'm in a home game that's a West Marches style game that is... I haven't been able to play in a while, but it is a home game in the fact that all of us are local to the Seattle area. And it being West Marches helps a lot because I do a lot of drop-in, drop-out. I've got a group that we meet up on Saturdays usually. We haven't been able to meet in the last couple of weeks because there's been D&D Live and the block party and all of that. So, but I've got a fun group that meets up, and it started as a playtest group. It started as, hey, I need someone to playtest this subclass. I need someone to playtest this this adventure. I need some help with this, and so we all got together and played. And it's a really good group that I have a lot of fun playing with, and it's expanded out to just be, well, we should just play again next week. Who needs playtesting? And then so a lot of the off-stream games I'm in are like every week and a half, every 2 weeks, that kind of thing. Most of my regular games are either the stream games that I'm on for D&D Beyond or my podcast.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, I mean, we've done that where we've recently brought back more home games, but they're monthly games, and we just take turns each week with someone else just runs a game. And, you know, we found for us, like, that's helped tremendous. It's like how we were able to actually get through a campaign for the first time ever and go from first level to 20th level. It takes longer, but, you know, but the games don't, like, burn out and fade away.
I think it's also important for those of us who do a lot of online work in D&D and do a lot of streaming, to, especially people who are trying to make a living either being a streamer or in the D&D world. It can, like any freelance job, the impetus can be everything I do must also make money doing it. And so if I'm going to play D&D, it needs to be on something that I can publish, monetize. You know, there's that really strong freelancer, everything I do must make money because I'm doing something that I love, and so I don't get free time. And so I think it's really important, especially for those of us who work in the D&D industry, to have those times to play D&D and where it's not a performance, in where you get to be ridiculous and you don't have to, you know, because I think the best D&D shows are the ones that it's more like your home game. You know, if you're watching a game and it's very obvious that these people just like playing together, that's going to be a great game. But there's always some considerations when you're performing D&D, you know, about, I don't just want to get up and go grab a snack and say, hey, I'll be right back in the middle of a stream. Yeah. Or, you know, working on, you know, some of the things you have to consider when you're trying to put on a good show as well as have a fun D&D game, and being able to just sit around with friends, and if the game stops because you all want to talk about someone's new puppy for a little while, that's fine. You're just hanging out with friends. And I think it's really important for those of us who work in D&D to have that time to enjoy D&D without it being work. And so having those home games have been really important.
Yeah, you know, when you're putting together a stream game, there's a whole checklist you have to go through before you even get to the game. and make sure you're doing things in a certain way. I mean, in my opinion, anyway. Which is completely different than your home game, where you can just show up with your friends and play the game, and you don't have to worry about pacing nearly as much. And also, I feel like a home game is a little bit better for, if you're like if you're in the industry as from the design aspect than a stream game, because you need to see the game played the way most people are going to play it. So if you're a designer, you should not be doing just stream games. Again, this is my opinion. You should also be doing home games so you can see the different variations and how people are going to interact with your content.
And also, if you're one of those forever DMs, you need a chance to play.
Yeah.
You absolutely deserve a chance to not be in charge for a while. Like, I love DMing, but being able to play on a regular basis has helped my DMing so much, because it's been a reminder of the other side of things and the things that I love as a player, and also just the less work that it takes to show up as a player to a game than as a DM.
So Kamo wants to know, what kind of changes have you seen in the demographics of D&D community while working and modding in the industry?
They've become way more diverse, which is outstanding. And I think this is true in all geek worlds, video games, comic books. Especially as a woman, it's one of those things to say, like, I've always been a geek. I've always liked D&D and role-playing games and comic books and geek stuff. But for a while it was, and it still is, it can be hard to find and feel comfortable in I think a lot of us have that story of walking into a game store, especially in the 80s, and having everybody look at us and be like, are you sure you're in the right place? So I think it's getting way better now, that the diversity of the people that we have playing, working on stuff, it can always get better, but that has helped a lot. The community is way more welcoming and way more interested in hearing from a variety of people, and that's been outstanding, because I've got friends who I want to be able to play and I want them to feel comfortable, but they've had the same experience that I did, which is walking into a game store and maybe I'm not actually comfortable here, maybe I'm not welcome here. So having that change has been fantastic.
Well, I will say, like, we were actually talking about this a little bit, I think yesterday, but the environment of game stores in general has gotten better, where they were like, I just remember, like, for one, we didn't actually have game stores. It was like a comic book store that would have game stuff or something, and they were just
There'd
like
be the one table in the back, and they'd be playing Warhammer on it, and be like, "Oh, this looks like fun," and then everybody would just stare at you like, "Are you no, this is not for you," or at least that was, unfortunately, a lot of experiences. But yeah, like having like a game store, come here to play games and be welcome. So.
But they were dark and dingy, and like it wasn't until like much later that I found these game stores that were actually open and bright, and they let the sun in. Like literally, the other stores would plaster posters all over the windows so that there would be no natural light coming in. I mean, not that that's why they did it, but but it just created this weird, dark, creepy environment that I don't think anybody really wanted to be in. No matter what walk of life you came from, but that's what you had. So
yeah.
What kind of games do you like to run?
It's a mix. I do tend to gravitate towards silly one-shots. I am a fan of the, hey, let's get together for 2 hours and I've got an adventure, and the adventure is just like a one-line silly thing, and let's see what happens. I do really like that. But then on the other side, I really like a very long, intense campaign that can have the ups and downs of serious adventure to silly. My podcast is essentially my home game and my home campaign, and so being able to run, here's an adventure that dives into this character's backstory, and then here's a silly jaunt in the Feywild, and then here's an intense dealing with a demon, and then here's a silly jaunt at a pie store. So like I kind of go back and forth between more serious character driven stuff and then really silly one shots. Less horror. I have a lot of respect for people who can run like the creepy. Like Ravenloft isn't necessarily something I'm comfortable running. I have I'm not as good at running that kind of style, and I'm not necessarily a space person. So like I've played in a couple of Eberron one shots and stuff that's more the steampunk-ish, but I do tend to veer more towards the classic fantasy tropes.
Where can folks find your podcast?
So Dungeon Drunks comes out every Monday, wherever fine podcasts are sold. So just do a search for us. Do not be daunted by the fact that we have over 200 episodes. We've been on for a while. We've got it split up into adventures. We do I do a brief recap at the beginning of every adventure, or at the beginning of every episode, and that is literally my what I consider kind of my home game. Those are 4 friends of mine that I've had literally for about a decade that we started playing together, and those are, if you go back to the first couple of adventures that we ran years and years and years ago, you can see a lot of our evolution as players, as a DM. It's those are some of my best friends, and I just do whatever I can to make them happy. That's kind of where that game is.
So Dave has a question. Love the idea of West Marches. Can you talk about how your experience with it is, especially for busy people?
So it's outstanding for busy people because it is way less pressure. If you've got your normal D&D game that is, all right, it's a DM and 4 or 5 players and someone can't make it, there's a lot of consternation about like, all right, am I letting down the group if I don't show up? Can they even play? Is there a hole? You know, if we're in the middle of something intense and I can't make it to a game, am I going to screw everything up? West Marches, or at least all the versions that I've played in, have allowed... They're shorter adventures. They tend to be, at least the one that I'm playing in, you sign up for a game that's going to be, we're going to play 3 times over the course of this month. It's going to be this day, and this day. And, you know, the adventure is going to be finished then. And if you can't make it, there's enough people in the group who can fill that adventure and still play. And so, unsurprisingly, the West Marches game that I'm in is run by a bunch of people who also played a lot of World of Warcraft. So they're used to running a guild in where, all right, we've got 50 people in this guild. A bunch of us want to go run this raid. I need 7 people to run this raid. So that's kind of the nice thing about West Marches is like you get to participate and you get to jump in when you can, but when you can't, you don't have that feeling of, oh, I'm letting people down because now they can't play because I can't be there. The slight downside is it's a little harder to have the character growth that you want. So if you, as a player or as a DM, if what you crave is that intense character-driven storyline, it's a bit harder to do that because your character might not be there. So it tends to be a little more adventure-focused than character-focused, but for people who have very flexible lives, we're like, hey, I can play this Monday, but not next Monday. Or I'm great for the next 3 weeks, but then I'm gone for a bunch of weeks. It's a great way to play, and it's also a good way to play with a bunch of different people. You know, I've got 20 people I want to play with. I can't play a game with 20 people, so let's all put our resources together and go run that raid.
How scheduled is that in the sense, like, do 20 people ever show up to the same session?
Well, the way that we run it is we have a Slack channel, and when we have 4 or 5 people who are DMs in the guild, and those people pick a time or several times. So one of the DMs will come along and say, okay, I'm going to run this adventure. Here's like a one-line idea of what the adventure is for. Here's the 2 or 3 dates that I'm going to run. I'm going to run Mondays 7 to 9 for the next 3 weeks. And whoever is the people to sign up are those are the people that play. And the DMs try to vary the times and the dates that they are running games to give people as much choice as possible. So it's not, we don't tend to have games in where like 10 people sign up. Usually it's, all right, the first 4 to 6 people who sign up, those are the people who get in the game. And then there'll be 1 or 2 people who will sign up as backups and say, all right, if something happens and this person can't show up, I'll jump on in. So that's how we run it, and it seems to work pretty fine for us. But I know that's also one of the nice things about West Marches is its flexibility that way, so it depends on how you want to run it.
Yeah, someone in the chat just mentioned, they're not familiar with that style of play. I think JP really kind of made it popular. And, if you check out their YouTube channel, you can probably find like a ton of gameplays for it. They're also they were also the forerunner for stream games. I don't know that there was anything really before that. I know, I know,
Ack Inc. is kind of the first real thing. So
but that was like an annual, not so much the regular. Where
it was annual, or when it was still podcasts. Then they were doing Perkins would run the set, or it was mostly with the Penny Arcade people, but then he was also doing it wasn't even really streamed. It was like either a podcast or showing up on YouTube, and it would be he ran for the Robot Chicken guys, or he ran for so it was that thing, and that was 4th edition, and that was before Twitch was a thing. That was as close as you got to streaming, but you're right that it was very it was situational, or it was short, or it was just here's a couple of episodes and that's it.
Yeah, so JP, that channel started 2011 on YouTube, and they have a ton of stuff that you can kind of check out. It's interesting because it's early days. Now I know Satine would also do annual things pre-YouTube, what was it called? It was live stream or Ustream. She had done some things, which is really crazy too, because that's way back when. But I think that was also more an annual thing as well. So the itch has been there for a long time.
Oh yeah, I mean it's. In a weird way, it's relatively new when you think about it, of how old Twitch is, or how long podcasts have been around, because those are kind of the first D&D. That's how I got introduced to listening to other people play D&D. That wasn't just me standing behind people playing D&D. It's here's these Ack Inc. games. Here's so being able to listen in on those games. And then that marriage of Twitch being a place where you go to watch other people play games. Well, why not also watch people play D&D? I want to watch. I like watching the interaction between people and between characters, and so D&D is great for that.
So it's just crazy to think about this hobby from when I started playing to now, where I literally started during the Satanic Panic. And now, now people are watching it as entertainment. We have people that don't even play the game, but like to watch other people play the game. We've even had, even on our channel, we've had people go, I've never played any D&D, but I just like these videos, or I bought all the books, but I've still never played, and I've just been collecting them for 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
You just find these different odd ways people interact with the hobby that I never would have anticipated.
The fun thing about that is, I know that's a thing that people get flack for that when they're like, I just like watching the shows, or I like collecting the books or stuff. As a classical musician, once again, that totally makes sense to me. I am a professional classical musician. I perform for a living. I don't expect everybody in the audience to also be professional classical musicians who play. people who come to hear an orchestra are not also orchestral musicians. And so I love it when the way that they get introduced to D&D is they're watching Critical Role, and they love watching Critical Role. And I hope they get the chance to play and try it out, because I think, unlike classical music, it's a little easier to get into D&D. But if that's the way you interact, if the way that you enjoy this hobby is you like the performative aspect, you like watching other people play and being in that community, welcome. That's awesome. If you're getting enjoyment out of it, then good for you.
Yeah, I can't stand the naysayers. I don't really care how people interact with the hobby or how they get into it. I think they're all valid. Whether it's, watching stream games like Critical Role, or if you're the spouse that shows up only because, or the significant other that shows up only because you just want to be in the same space, as your other person. To me, I'm like, they're being exposed. Like, so what? Sometimes it'll stick, sometimes it won't. But at least they're being exposed to the hobby and what we do, and maybe they'll come back later, or maybe they will find their passion for the thing that we love. But as long as they're finding the hobby, that's all I really care about. Is reaching new people. So Dave wants to know, social media, so many and so many forums. What does one do? Which one do you find works the best? Do you have a favorite?
I'm a Twitter person. I think the social media you gravitate towards is very. It's a very personal thing, and it's how you want to interact on social media. Obviously, my job means that I have to be at least invested in all of the major ones. But personally, as me, I'm mostly on Twitter. I like the short form of it. I like the being able to follow people for a variety of reasons. Most of the people that I follow are friends or other people in the industry that I'm interested in what they're doing. But yeah, for me, Twitter is a flexible enough medium of being able to put out videos or images or just little short blurbs that I enjoy that. And I find it's the most flexible of like being able to grab it on my phone or grab it on the computer. But my parents are hardcore Facebook people who on a regular basis, my mom wants to know, hey, how come you're not posting on Facebook? I'm like, well, because it's just not the medium for me. I don't think one is better than the other. I think it just ends up being what you gravitate towards, and whatever works in getting you connected to the people that you want to talk to or want to follow and keep up with, then that's it. But for me, it's Twitter.
Yeah, whenever I'm asked that question, which social medias should you use, especially in a professional medium, I'm like, well, you should start with the ones you like. Because if being there makes you miserable, no matter, that's not going to be an effective platform for you. It is my opinion. Like, yeah. We find for Nerdarchy, YouTube actually, or not YouTube, Facebook actually works the best. We get the most interaction there, the most follow through. When we look at analytics and insights, like on Twitter, we might get likes or retweets or whatever. But then when we actually see who's actually using it and going over to look at our stuff, it's virtually nothing. For some reason, Facebook has been more effective for that. And then there's some places like Reddit, which I just don't like and I've tried to go over there, but I just cannot get into Reddit for the life of me. And I just find it to be a terrible place.
I like Reddit. I'm not very active there. I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of lurking on Reddit, but I appreciate being an old school BBSer. I appreciate the threading of those and the way that works. But yeah, I think any social media has its the way that you interact with it is going to inform you about whether it's for you or not. So, because how you interact on Reddit is way different than how you interact on TikTok or Twitter or Facebook, and it's just finding the place for you.
And, the other thing is, like, each one of those things could be its own job, and, if you're using them professionally. And so that part is also hard. You have to, you have to choose your battles, especially if you're a creator who has to also do your own social media.
Yep.
So BK Dan wants to know when you got started playing.
So I have a big gap. I did play for it. I'm gonna say play in quotes. When I was very young, my parents bought the Red Box for me, and this was back in the early '80s because I was an indoor child who I was doing early computer stuff because my dad is a psychologist and my mom worked in education, and we were in New York. So my parents were building computers back when it was like, here's a 14.4 modem and you're logging into BBSs. So I was playing like all the old school video games. Like I was hardcore into Zork, and they wanted me to like go be social. And so they bought me the Red Box. And then the Satanic Panic happened. And so a lot of my memories from then is like me going through the little introductory adventure to show you how to play just over and over and over again with different characters. But I never really got a chance to play. And then fast forward through a bunch of years and where I had some RPG experience here, there, and everywhere, but nothing major until 4th edition came out. And when 4th edition came out, they put out a version of that Red Box for 4th edition, and I'd been listening to the Akin Inc. podcasts, and I'd been playing a lot of RPGs in video games, but I'd been really wanting to get back into, I want to try D&D again. So I bought the Red Box for 4th edition. It's still sitting right over there, and that was how I really got back in. I found a store. I'd moved out to Seattle. I found a store that was running the 4th edition version of Adventures League, essentially. Come and play, and we'll match up with the group. And yeah, I started playing once a week there until the store closed down, because that's the sad reality of a lot of places. And then that group moved into my tiny little apartment. And yeah, we played... I played 4th edition weekly for years, and then we did the next play test and converted over to 5th edition, and it was just the weekly thing that I did forever and ever and ever, and then things got it turned into a job. There you go.
And then it was
just turned into a job. That's how it happened. It's one day I'm rolling dice, and the next minute I'm working for D&D Beyond.
Nice. Sounds like a fairy tale to me. Sounds great. So, several people have kind of mentioned this, and I'm kind of echoing it, because you mentioned started playing in the 80s. Do you have like a painting in your house hanging up someplace?
I do not. So, I asked my parents recently to go look for that original Red Box, because I remember that so clearly, and I wanted that dice that you had to color in with the white crayon, and they looked and they could not find it. It's probably buried somewhere, but no, I don't.
You're apparently older. You're older than you look. So
I am 43 years old. There you go. I'm gonna put that out there.
So. You look great. Because I am going to be 45 this year. I know I look like I'm about 65, but...
Nah. We're fine. It's the internet. We're on Zoom. I got that thing turned on that's like, clean up appearance.
Yeah.
I got a little, it's fine. But yeah, I am... I don't mind saying what my age is because, I've kind of given up being worried about that kind of thing.
I think that is one of the benefits of getting older and accepting where we are in our lives. It's time is inevitable.
Time is a flat circle. Love is a battlefield.
Yeah. So, I asked you if, being a musician influenced D&D at all. What about the other way around?
A little bit. So, because I'm a classical musician, that's such a controlled type of play, and there's a joy in that, but it is very there's a precision there, and also as a classical musician, the only improving I ever do is the Baroque type, which is also comes with a set of rules. Here is how you improv. What D&D has let me do is be that jazz musician I never got a chance to be. The amount of flexibility and the improvisation that I get to do in D&D has allowed me to go back to the oboe playing, and not necessarily when I'm playing professionally as an oboist, but it's allowed me to go back and try doing things on oboe that I never would have before. I do a lot of, especially now at the end of the world, where all I do is play for the internet. I'll take requests online of, hey, what would you like to hear me try to play on oboe? And what D&D has let me do is, all right, I will go ahead and try to play Whitesnake on oboe. Why not? I will go ahead and try to play, whatever thing that you're going to throw at me, I'm going to try, because why not?
Can we see that someplace?
On Twitter. I usually post stuff on Twitter. It's been a while. If you look for, I think I was using the hashtag Oboe Twitter, Twitter Oboe. But yeah, I'll take suggestions. And what I like to say is, I can play whatever you want. Whether it'll sound good or not is a different answer. But yeah, being a D&D player and having that experience of, all right, I'm just going to make things up as I go along, and I'm going to be flexible, and I'm going to try to be silly, has let me be a little more flexible and silly on an instrument that is usually not.
Have you seen the Harp Twins?
Yes. Yeah.
They're fantastic. They do a lot of that where they'll do rock songs and metal songs or nerdy theme songs on harps, and they're a lot of fun that way.
Oh yeah, there's the Video Game Orchestra, which is actually a local thing here in Seattle, and they do amazing. And I mean, that's slightly more classical music, but like being able to hear professionals play just popular music, I think is great fun. And especially with so many people now at home who have that itch to play, but they want to. I've just lost the name of the group that there were these cellos who used to play Metallica covers, Apocalyptica. That it's a bunch of cellists playing Metallica, and it sounds amazing. Like that kind of play was something I don't know if I would have ever tried if it wasn't for D&D.
Nice. So we are up on the hour mark now. Anything you want to say before we head on out?
Go play D&D. Go be kind. Go invite new people to play. Be safe.
As always, there are links in the pinned comment below, so you can go follow D&D Beyond and check out Lauren's podcast. I want to thank you for coming on. It's been great chatting with you. It's been a blast. So until next time, everyone, stay nerdy.
Bye.